The LCK this year, with an explosive year from T1 in the spring, Gen G manages to take first place in the summer finals, and KT having an explosive year as well, and Damwon finally somehow finding their way to Worlds. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Gen G first. First place team out of LCK. Chovy and Doran have played together for a very long time now, and specifically on Gen G, Chovy, Peanut, and Doran have played together for 2 years now. It's really clear they've influenced each other, I think, a lot. You can see Doran and Chovy do a lot of the similar things in lane. Let's talk about Chovy a little bit specifically. This year, going into off of the semifinals loss last year on a team that Chovy probably believed was a Worlds winning team. It was a Worlds winning team. He has once again said that he wants to work a lot more on helping his team and pushing his lane leads into other lanes. And you can see, especially in these finals, with picks like the Talia, he's finding these opportunities to take his lead elsewhere. Now, Doran, as a laner, he is my favorite top laner. He can be a little griefy, a little inty, but he turns it on when it matters, and it's clear in playoffs he's a really fucking good player. Don't talk shit about this guy, I'll find you. I think he's a great player. He finds insane engages, he finds insane plays, and he's great laner into these top laners in the world. And Peanut has always been really good. Ever since, like, watching the World's reruns, like, he shows up on the world stage in like season 6, I think, and he doesn't leave it, you know? He's always there in some form on some team, even in the LGD team that almost got knocked out of group stage or play-ins at 2020. He still makes his way. Peanut is really good. He is a great jungler to watch. His early pathing will always be interesting. He'll always be trying to do something with it, even if it is just like the game 5 adaptation. The game 5 adaptation from last year's Worlds against Damwon, where he's playing Sejuani and he just refuses to fight this Kayn. Even if it's something passive like that, he is always thinking about his pathing. Paze and Delight, let's talk about these guys. This was maybe not controversial. I don't know much, as I don't live in Korea. I don't know what Korean fans say about things like this. Paze is a rookie. As a rookie, he's looked fantastic. I think he's been in the running for MVP a couple times. I think he got finals MVP in spring, maybe. While he is surrounded by superstar level players like Chovy, Doran, and Peanut, he is himself a superstar in the making. This first year, if it is just a springboard for the rest of his career, he is going to turn out to be an absolutely accomplished player. He doesn't really have like the hesitation that like a rookie would have on some of these plays, especially when he's going for big plays in like the late game team fight as a 5-item Zeri. He will flash forward and try to one-shot somebody. Now, Delight comes from a Fredit Breon team that did really bad in their last split. I think they were 3-15. Now, the meme of Fredit Breon, even back then, was that they are the worst team in the LCK. Where all of their matches, they look really good, even if they can't close out the game. Delight maybe was a controversial pickup for this Gen G roster. But this guy has really been fucking good all year. The way he plays around vision in fights, I hate to say it, but he is a delight to watch when he's playing these picks like Rakan, Blitzcrank. I don't want to really see him on Nautilus because it's boring. I want to see him on these fun champions that do really cool things. So if you watched LCK, you would know Gen G all year long. They've been a really slow team, really boring. Just going for solid leads, cross-map plays, macro plays. But the first game they played in playoffs, you could immediately see they looked so much different. They were pushing plays, being really aggressive, going for dives early, and really they kind of ramped up their pressure. They did a lot of really small adaptations too, you could see. Chovy and Doran, if they did not have TP, they would force a fight with the enemy laner when the team wanted to go for a play, even if it was a bad fight. Even if it was a fight that could end up in them dying or having to give up CS, they would force that fight just so the enemy laner could not TP and turn the fight bot lane or wherever the play is had. They do these things. They are really smart about the game. And even if they are really slow, you have to realize they are constantly getting these small advantages by just being smart about their map movements. I want them to win. I want them to win Worlds. T1, everyone knows the little stint that happened during the year. Faker got injured for a little bit. They put a different mid laner in. and every single one of their players looked terrible. Put Faker back in, and they are a top 2 LCK team once again. The influence this guy is the GOAT of League of Legends. I don't think anybody can really talk shit about Faker ever again. And as for this tournament, because Faker is back, we can kind of ignore that little thing that happened, because it doesn't matter. Even if the players didn't look good during that time, they look good when Faker is back, and Faker is back. Let's talk about everybody but Faker real quick. Zeus is a really monster laner. He's one of the best top laners. He has struggled against the top competition before, but he has the potential to be the best laner out of any top laner. Gumayushi has been this team's best player all year. He's just really been on form. He's been really consistent about his positioning, the damage he gets off in fights, his laning. He hasn't really fallen behind in lane. And Keria with him. Keria is still insanely mechanically gifted. Earlier this year was the year he did all this insane ADC support picks. So he could play some really crazy stuff, or he could just play what's meta and just find these engages in these picks. Either way, he has the depth that is needed to go far in Worlds. Owner is, I've heard people talk about how he's the weak link of this roster. He definitely has these games where he gets focused by the enemy team, and he gets really far behind in these games. In like half of these games, he makes some play that like just shouldn't work and comes back into the game, whether it's through like his team collapsing for him or just a slight thing that he does to live a second longer, and he's able to come back in the game. So this roster is really strong. They can definitely make it through lane phase against these strong teams with leads or even. Faker as a player, he roams and gives up and soaks pressure just so that his team can do better. Faker is a player that just existing in the game, it makes his other laners stronger. In team fights, this year, Faker has found every single game I see him play Nico, he finds like 4 different 3-man engages like on the carries. This guy is a player who just is so smart about the game, knows so much about the game, and plays it so well. It just single-handedly can turn these fights around, just himself. And now that like T1 is back and all these players are back and playing good, he has the team to follow up on his engages. Faker and T1, they could go far. KT roster, very interesting this year. All 5 of their players got first team all-pro team for the LCK. Lehans, their support, got MVP, with some people believing Keen, their top laner, was snubbed of MVP. They had an insanely dominant regular season, only to fall short in playoffs though. So, what does that mean? This first team, all-pro team, MVP candidate, MVP supports, dominant first place regular season team, doesn't even make it to the finals of LCK. Let's talk about Keen. I think this is his year to prove that he is the best top in the world. This is his year to prove himself on the international stage finally after years of not working out for him. He is a great player. He can play weak side, he can play strong side, he can carry, he can just play Gragas and then hit a barrel at the end of the game. Very consistent, very flexible player. Now Lehans, the MVP. He is a very smart player. He finds these engages from really insane angles for flanks, finding a way past the front line and getting onto the carries. But sometimes he's a little too smart. And they had a pick last year singed into Yuumi. That was a really good Yuumi counter. They tried to pull it against Lulu this year in the playoffs, and it really did not work well. But he is one of the best supports in the world. He is at the top of the supports currently. Even if his team doesn't make it to finals, winning MVP, he is the support to take down right now. Really quick, because he has some fights where he has insanely good engages. He has solid jungle pathing. I don't think he has any really crazy ganks or anything like that, but he is a very consistent jungler who will be there to cover dives. He'll be there to set up dives, be there to set up vision. And in these fights, he has the potential to make these really great plays for his team. Aiming, I think, recently I heard analysts or casters say at some point in the years past that aiming has been known as a bit of a choker. I think in these longer 5-game series KT had against T1, he really looked good. I think he definitely had mistakes that he made, and like those mistakes could be a little bit of choking, but he also had really clutch plays, which if someone was a choker, they would fail these plays, right? But he had these plays and they worked for him and he's going for them. To have the confidence to go for them is really what the problem could be if you are a choker, right? If he was a choker in the past, he's clearly getting better and more comfortable in these longer game situations, which is great for him. Besides that, he looks really good. He's a solid laner, solid team fighter, and will look for these big plays. But BDD, let's talk about BDD. I already had a great season this year. 17-1, gotta be a great season for every player, right? But he didn't get an MVP candidate. He got first all-pro team, but he's with 4 first all-pro team players, right? That's a lot easier to do when your team is really good. I've always seen BDD as a gatekeeper into the league of great mid laners. On a given year, if you play against BDD and beat him, it's not that he's bad, it's that you yourself are a great mid laner. And he's kind of the benchmark for what I determine to be a great mid laner, which means he himself, I still do not believe he is a great mid laner. In a way, he's able to contest and play against all of these greatest mid laners, but he will still be behind in lane to all of them. These players like Chovy, like Faker, Knight, Scout, those guys, Yagao's gonna fraud against them. He's the one who, he'll contest them, he'll find opportunities to play well and find great fights and team fights, but the enemy mid laner will always be slightly outperforming him in a way. That does not mean he cannot beat these mid laners though, but still, he will always be the gatekeeper in my mind until he proves himself, until he finally beats someone like Chovy or Knight. So we will see. The gatekeeper has a monster team. We'll see what they can do. Damwon, DK, Damwon Kia, they really struggled this year. They got Deft on their roster. Deft has had a really good year despite their struggles. I don't have his exact damage numbers, but I know he was in the top damage percentages or damage per minute players, and it wasn't even close compared to all the other ADCs in the league. So Deft is definitely a solid point for them. Kana has been a Worlds level player in the past, and he's struggled recently. Kana is a weak link in this roster. He is definitely somewhere a lot of criticism is going to go towards. He is a player who needs to prove himself on this roster and at Worlds. The other thing about their bot lane, Damwon has switched between Kellen and Bible quite a bit this year, and I love Bible. I'm a huge Bible fan. He has huge potential, and he's been in the challenger scene for a while and has been on winning teams in the challenger scene for a while. Kellen is the player that we will see at Worlds. I doubt that Bible will play just because Kellen, especially recently, I think Kellen is a great player. I don't know anything about what happens inside of Damwon. I think Kellen is maybe not a great shot caller, while Bible is very shot call heavy, which is why they brought him in to see if they could change up the comms a little bit. But I think Kellen is a great player. He played really well in the regional qualifier. His Alistar was really terrifying and just so fucking good. And the biggest X factor for this team is Canyon and Showmaker. I think the biggest reason why Damwon slumped this year was because of Canyon and Showmaker specifically slumping. These are two players who won Worlds and show up at Worlds every year. It is really up to them what kind of form of Canyon and Showmaker are we going to see. I would not rate this team very highly. I wouldn't even really put them in quarterfinals. I think there's a lot of potential for teams to get to quarterfinals. Coming off of, as silly as it may be, knowing that the 4th seeded team from Korea won last year could be a huge morale buff for a different 4th seeded Korean team. Canyon and Showmaker, what kind of form will they have? So that's the LCK this year. I think that Gen.G specifically should be one of the favorites coming into this tournament, even though their MSI performance was a little bit lackluster. They've shown that they are ready to play at this much more aggressive level, this much more fast-paced gameplay. We'll see how they stack up against the best LPL teams, but this is a year where LCK can win again. They have these teams, even if they didn't do what they expected of them in the playoffs, like KT. KT is still, they went to 5 games against T1 twice, right? These are 3 really solid teams coming in, and any single one of them could win Worlds.